This is the meeting of the Parking Authority of Fairfield, April 28th at 7 p.m. It's being held in the first floor conference room of Independence Hall and also via conference call bridge.
Thank you. This is Rich Fitzgerald. I know we circulated an agenda a couple days ago. First order of business here is to call to order the meeting as we did. And then the second order here is to act on the minutes from the March 28th meeting. Eileen circulated them on April 7th. The one, I think the content was perfect. The one area on the agenda today is just we had February 24th, so we just need to edit that to reflect March 28th as the last meeting.
31st.
Is it 31st?
Yeah.
Oh, 31st. Okay, sorry. March 31st as the meeting minute dates for that. With that, I'll make a motion to approve them. All those in favor?
Aye. Somebody said second first.
Second.
Oh, I second.
Second, okay. Adrian the second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Next, we're just going to go slightly out of order and have Jeremy Lynch give us an overview of the Birds Ride scooter program. Jeremy, the floor is yours, and looking forward to hearing your background on this important topic.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I'm not sure what Mark had filled everybody in on and anything about the program, so I'm just going to go through a few slides to give you some background and then kind of what we look to for the program in Fairfield, and then answer any questions you guys may have. Bird is a micromobility company. Our focus is in shared electric vehicles, those being scooters, and also now actually electric bikes too. We started this business back in 2017. We started the scooter business in Venice, and it's evolved quite rapidly in the last 5 years. Our goal and our founder's goal was more or less to get people out of cars and to provide a first mile, last mile transportation to get to work, to get to businesses, access for visitors to spend money in different locations, to connect people to transit, either one way to transit or home from transit. That was his objective when he created the scooters, and we've come a long way. Since then, we're in over 350 cities worldwide, and we've launched 200 cities similar to what we were discussing with Fairfield in the U.S. alone just this past year. All with that small 50 to 75 scooter program, and most recently an agreement in Ansonia, Naugatuck, and actually we'll be launching in Bridgeport tomorrow or Saturday. But the program has done very well, and that's kind of was my original approach to Fairfield over a year ago, was to talk about how micromobility may be an option for Fairfield, and how that the downtown core from the bottom end of 95 up to the border of Bridgeport, how those folks could benefit from the system. The system is all Bird is all it's all app based, so people download the app in the Google Play or the App Store, and you download the app, you go through a tutorial, you have to verify that you are 18 years of age. You actually have to look through the local rules, which are customizable to Fairfield. You sign the user agreement or the rental agreement as the rider. You add a form of payment, that be a debit or a credit card, and once you complete the tutorials, you're able to ride a scooter. There's a QR code that you basically use that's on top of the handlebars of the scooter, where you scan into it, and it allows you to get onto that scooter. It gives you the scooter's limit is 15 miles an hour. The range of the battery is 35 miles, so it's actually quite a long way. And so when someone wants to get a ride, they simply look in the app for the scooters. The GPS of the scooters is very exact, so you'd look for the scooters in the area. You simply tap on one of the icons. One of the neat features is in the app, it gives you walking directions. It gives you directions on how far it is and the easiest route to get there in Google Maps. So you basically press on it. It gives you you can reserve it 30 minutes in advance if you like. And you basically just go to that scooter, you scan the QR code, and then it's available for you to ride. You basically pick it up from there. You basically have to take a couple of, for lack of a better term, skateboard pushes off. So you got to get the scooter in momentum for the throttle to engage, and the throttle engages, and off you go. When you get to your destination, depending upon the area in Fairfield that we will be in, there could be specific parking locations set up, whether that be in the train station or downtown where you have to park in that particular area. Before you finish your ride, you actually have to stand back and take a picture of where you parked the scooter. And that gets uploaded to the cloud so we can actually see where you parked that scooter, and then you're able to end your ride. It's $1 to get on and 49 cents a minute thereafter. So a 10-minute ride is, it's going to cost you about $5, five and change, closer to $6, and with the dollar. And so it's not that expensive considering the cost of gas and Uber and everything else. It's a great way for people to get around. I look forward in the community as a way for people to get to and from transit, for people in downtown to get around. And then when tourists come, whether they come through train to one of the 3 train stations, it gives them the ability to get into town without necessarily having to drive or to take an Uber or something like that. It's just an easier way for people to traverse town. It is a dockless model, like I mentioned, so that they follow the rules of the road like a bicycle, like a bike. It gives the ability for people.
Sorry. I'm sorry, John.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was being a little cynical. No, the rules, the bicyclers don't necessarily have them.
No, I agree. That's true. But that's what we teach them, is to follow the rules of the road. That's one of the reasons why 18 is a big reason.
Right.
I can tell you from experience, my 2 18-year-olds were not good drivers, but they were better than they were when they were 16. So it does, having someone being 18 does give them a little ability to at least know the rules of the road, or somewhat better than someone younger than that. There is an operating zone that we'll have set up in Fairfield. Currently, what I discussed with Mark was basically cutting it off at 95, all the way down to the southern end of town, up to the northern end of town, just above the last train stop at the northern end, or I guess northern, but the furthest end of town, and then cutting down to Bridgeport, and then going along the water. I would include Fairfield University in that operating zone as well, but we'll have to talk to Fairfield to make sure that they would be okay with the scooters being on campus or students riding them there. But until that time, they wouldn't be included in the operating zone. Having sold in Zipcar to universities for 8 years, I always get permission before I enter into a university, that's for sure. What it means by that operating zone is if a scooter rides out of the zone, it comes to a stop. So it's not able to be ridden out of it. So if you actually exit the zone, and the zone is clearly delineated in the app, as well as the parking locations, or if there's a no-ride zone, as soon as you leave the zone, the scooter will come to a stop, and you have to move it back in and in order to have it be operational. So that's one of the benefits, and I realize that a lot of Fairfield is not ideal riding territory, and so there's no sense in having the whole area being operating zone, because scooters, if they get ridden up there, they're not going to come back. So my thought was just to keep it in that smaller area near the downtown where we know we're going to get a lot of use. Some of the benefits from it, 50% of our riders report using a bird to visit local businesses. So, I see that in a lot of the mixed-use developments, the apartments and condos downtown, the people that come to work from the train, giving them the ability to get to and from different times. Anybody that comes to the summer residents, instead of maybe driving into town to go to a restaurant or a Starbucks, they'll take a scooter. We want to create less vehicle trips into town so it could reduce congestion. One of the other great things is it does have the ability, because we hire someone locally, and obviously I believe everyone's familiar with Nick Mirabelli. He's going to be the fleet manager for Fairfield. He's going to be hiring probably a couple other people to help him move those scooters around. Although Nick is, I wouldn't say, I'm 55, and the scooters weigh 50 pounds. I mean, it's not fun to be humping scooters up and down every day for 8 hours a day, so I'm sure he's going to have help to do that. One of the things about that role is they are to rebalance those scooters on every day and throughout the day. What I mean by that is that the scooters aren't just placed out and then the fleet manager sits around for 10 hours and comes back out and picks them up at the end of the day. Their objective is to actually move those scooters into areas where we know we're going to get rides and where the rides will be, where people will want to have rides. So, for instance, putting them at the train stops and putting them in areas where people may be taking them to the trains in the morning, and then at the end of the day, putting scooters at those train stops at multiple intervals so that people can, if they come back at 4 or 5, at 6, there'll be a new batch of scooters there waiting for them to ride back to their destination, their home, their apartment, whatever it may be. That's their objection. That's their objective. It's one of those things that they're actually held to a set of KPIs. So they are held to a standard by which they need to move those scooters around. There's someone at Bird that will oversee Nick's job and make sure he's doing it well. And there actually is, because the scooters are so GPSed, we can see when they move them, when they've been sitting idle for too long, and when they need to be moved in order to get rides. Now, the benefit to Nick is that the more rides he gets, the more money he makes because he gets to get a percentage of the ride revenue. So it is one of the motivations that we found to be super successful, not only that we'll find in Fairfield, but in other communities where it motivates those fleet managers to get as many rides as possible, to avoid clutter, and to keep those scooters in motion as much as possible because they're just making more money as they do. And it's one of the things that drives them, that entrepreneurial piece that we actually look for when we try to find a fleet manager to keep those scooters in motion. One of the things I told you about the operating zone, but there is a no ride in the slow zone. I think I talked to Mark about a slow zone for downtown. That could be on a couple of streets. That'd be Post Road, maybe something like that, where the speed of the scooter could come down to about 12 miles an hour if we want, or 10 miles an hour in a certain block radius. I find it to be very helpful for riders because if the traffic is heavy, and it's obviously, I know it's a very popular area, I haven't been down there many times, it gives people a little more awareness of their surroundings and they're going a little slower. And so I find that to be something that is it brings safety in mind because it is one of the things that is a priority for us. So, again, that's one of the additional product features that we can bring in, take down, put back up, whatever the city would like. We have the ability to do that, which is really great. One of the great things you're going to have access to is a data dashboard, and Mark and whomever else will be involved. You'll be able to see the rider behaviors, the frequency and length of rides, the number, how far they've gone, the time they've gone. And one of the important things that Nick as the fleet manager will get to see is the heat maps. So what that'll tell you is where the rides begin and the rides end. And what that does for Nick, it basically sets a pattern for him to place scooters where they're clearly popular and people are riding them at different times of the day. That's where he's going to place them. And where they end up, again, it's one of those things that helps us determine where to place scooters. So after about the first week or so, we're not guessing where to put them. We kind of know where they are because we can see where our rides are originating, and we'll want to put them in those locations where we clearly see riders wanting to ride them. And what that map also tells us is not to station scooters in areas we don't see a ride beginning or ending. So we don't put them in those areas. So an area that is particularly worried about scooters penetrating their area or having too many scooters in their neighborhood, if it's not an area where they're going to be ridden, we will be putting them there. Again, because Nick is motivated sheerly by getting as many rides as possible, and if they're not occurring in that neighborhood, he's certainly not going to put them there. So that's one of the good things, is being able to see that and judge where they're placed and how they're placed. And so that's an important part. And it's one of the things that helps determine the health of the program that the city has access to, that you can review, and it helps us determine expanding the operating area, contracting it, allowing other access areas for scooters, things like that, when the community starts to chime in. And one of the last things I'll tell you is that originally, when we start, those scooters will be parked in the furniture zone or areas near the public right-of-way, because that's where originally we're thinking where people are going to get rides. What generally happens after the first, second, third week, we'll get private owners of apartment complexes or condo locations or businesses who will ask us to park scooters in their areas in the morning or in the afternoon, because they know that there are people who live there or work there will want to ride scooters. And so a lot of the scooters end up being parked on private property. And those are conversations that I will have or Nick will have with that property owner to make sure it's okay to nest there. And a lot of times they come to us. And so they'll ask us, can you park scooters here in the morning? Because my residents would love to ride them, to the train or to Starbucks, whatever it may be. And so that's really what happens as a program matures. And you'll find that you'll see less and less originally parked in the morning on public property, and you'll find them a lot on private property. And they'll end up at restaurants and, all those kind of places too. So in a really quick nutshell, that's the basis of the program, and I'd be happy to answer any questions people may have about it.
I have a question. When you said in the beginning it will be on public right-of-way, are you talking about on the sidewalks or on the shoulder of streets?
So generally, it's in the would be in the furniture zone of the sidewalk, so it's basically closest to the curb if that's the only location. Other locations can be, it really depends upon the area. So it's obviously out of the right-of-way of people walking, but in an area that would be not, I guess down by the train station, there's several examples of a parking lot that has X'd out areas where no car can park, but an area that's free and doesn't have anybody parking there. Sometimes that's a place to put scooters, things like that. So those are the areas that Nick will scout out ahead of time to make sure that they're put in the proper locations.
Yeah, it would be good to work with you guys on that, because some of the areas by the train station that do have that crosshatched area are because, for instance, right across from the train station on the south side, there's a dumpster. Right. So we have to give access to the carting company times a week. So it would be good that, before a location is chosen, that we have an opportunity. I think my only concern, I like the idea of it, but my only concern is if people are starting to leave the scooters all over the walkway by the train station. There's really, right around the station house, there's only about a 4-foot wide walkway, and people start piling the bikes there or the scooters.
No, and that'll
be an issue.
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great comment, and that's one of the things where because I had to deal with the MTA for a long time, negotiating an agreement with Zipcar. I don't want to be anywhere near the platforms or anywhere near their particular. I know it's not MTA, but near their property. So there would be a no-ride zone around the train stations. So they would have to be parked. So, for instance, they'd be parked on the opposite side of Carter Henry on Drive.
Okay.
So they would be further back. They would not be. You could not ride up to, quote unquote, a turnstile and jump in and get on the train. You'll stop well before that, and I'll create parking icons that identifies the area where people will park. But yeah, I agree. They would not be able to ride beyond the road up into very close to the train station at all. We'd make sure of that.
Yeah, and I think I remember, last year, Mark had invited me to some of the meetings, and, I received a lot of communication when we were talking with you. And I remember you're saying that you could not put it on the state right away. And on for the New Haven bound side of Fairfield, kind of in your square, a lot of that is state right away. So we'll just have to be careful of where it goes. Exactly.
And you know what? It's to be honest, when people are parking right up against it, like I'm looking at it right now, say for Carter Henry, there obviously we can't be right up against it. So if they have to walk 15, 20 yards to it, that's not an effort for them. And honestly, we'd rather just I want them to keep away from where those cars are backing in. It's a lot of heavy traffic after the train disembarks. So keeping them further away is probably the best course of action at all the stops, and that's what we'll make sure we arrange that.
Jeremy, I have two questions. The first is,
sure.
Will there be scooters at the Southport train station? I think that's out of the zone, right? And then the second is, I just have no idea about this. How many scooters would you envision there being, having Nick, located, nested at the train station?
Well, Southport's in the zone.
Oh, it is?
It's down. That's because it's below that 95 area.
Oh.
Okay.
And then how many scooters would be the inventory that Nick would want to maintain?
Is it 10 or 15?
Yeah. 20, 5,
Yeah, so what Nick's going to have is he'll have 50 for Fairfield, that's 50 that he'll see 30 to 35 out every day on a busy day. And if he sees, for that, this is the thing too, this is the part of that with the city will be, if he's getting 5 or 6 rides per scooter per day, he may ask to have a few more put out simply because this is the part of that you're getting to see the data. You'll be able to see listen, we're getting too many rides where people are going without. and then we'll ask you to put some more out. But what happens is that he generally will keep 10 to 15 of that number behind in his warehouse charging. They're either being repaired. He's not going to have a full inventory out because he just won't be able to sustain it. So it's about 2/3 of the general volume you'll see out. On the first week that we come out, probably 20, 25 at the most to see what they're like. And then those will be spread out. And to be honest, you're going to be hard-pressed to find 20 or 25. You'll be hard-pressed to find 3 or 4 together very often just because there's too much space. They'll be spread out pretty quick. But that's the number. I don't see it getting any more than that. If it does, I don't see it climbing. I mean, we did, and I bring up Oswego, New York, because they survived on 60 to 65 scooters, and that's a bigger town. It has, where it is New York, but they were getting 300 rides a day on 60 scooters. That's a lot.
How big is Oswego?
I think it's 13,000. There's a little more land. There's a little more land to it, and they actually have a harbor. And there's, they have a lot of visitors and things like that. They also have a school there too that's far more attached and close than Fairfield. But I just don't see you guys going over that threshold, going over 50 at all. But again, I've been wrong, and that's what the data tells us that, and we can look at that and say, what do you think? Can we put a few more out? And that's the reason why that in that operating agreement we have that language in there. So we have to consult you.
There are a lot of Fairfield, just a data point, fun fact, Jeremy, there are a lot of Fairfield youth students who rent at the beach.
Yeah.
I could definitely see a lot of the scooter inventory being down there.
And the bar down there.
The Seagrape, that's right. And just that, so, that's where the
Is there
heat
a
map's
breathalyzer for
That's my
You know
concern.
what?
Who bears the liability when one of these crashes, which is inevitable, right?
It depends. I mean, we had 2 reported crashes out of 18,000 rides. I only mentioned it because that's the one I got from Oswego. 2 in 18,000 rides. That was 4 months of riding. You may not get any. We actually have a safe start thing we can put into place after 9 o'clock.
Who bears the liability?
Oh, sorry. Well, it depends who's at fault. So.
What's your liability?
Not the city.
What's Bird's liability?
Yes, it's ours. It's not the city's, exactly. Yep, and that was within the operating agreement. That was one of the things why your attorney was okay with it, because the liability does not rest with Fairfield. Correct.
So they click on the agreement. There's tons of legalese, I'm sure, in there.
And the first page and a half. If you drink and drive, if you're riding double. If you're riding with too much weight on your back, things of that nature, there's 6 or 7 things that will automatically disqualify you if you're in an accident and you've been drinking and you're riding with someone on the way home. That kind of disqualifies our coverage for you because we told you can't do that.
And so, in furtherance of that, you're putting these in I suspect I know Oswego is a college town. So you're telling me that in all these college towns, you've only had 2 accidents?
In that town, yeah.
I would be. I mean, we've got two colleges here, and I would not see Sacred Heart University kids using it because it's sort of
correct.
It's not as centrally located as Fairfield. But living in this town, I'm not sure I want a bunch of college kids riding around on scooters.
Well, to be honest, Fairfield's not a.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if Fairfield doesn't want to have an agreement with us, then the scooters wouldn't be able to go onto Fairfield's property. So it kind of eliminates the reason for them to be riding it up there if they can't ride it onto the property.
But that's something you're going to want to cultivate because that's obviously a huge market for you, right?
Not necessarily. I was at Fairfield because my son was accepted there, and we went through the tour and everything. It's a very confined campus. Everything Fairfield, to me, Fairfield's a place where they deliberately are trying to keep people on campus.
Yeah, but those kids, they might want to keep them on campus, but those kids don't want to stay on campus. What they want to do is ride that scooter from campus down to the beach and down to the Seagrape, right?
Yeah.
Well, until I have I have not talked to Fairfield about an agreement as of yet. I haven't. My objective is to work with the city to get the program up and running in the city. And if the university is interested, I'll certainly talk to them, but it's not my main objective. Otherwise, I would have talked to them first.
Right.
I think there's going to be enough rides in the city with the stops and what's going on to sustain 50 scooters.
You'd have to have the town agree, because those kids are going to be riding the scooters on town streets.
Jeremy, I have
I'm sorry?
This is Adrienne. I have a couple of questions. One is, I'm a big fan of micromobility, but I have a reservation about e-bikes and e-scooters. Well, I have several. One is that, and it's both a plus and a minus, they don't make any noise. And so if you're a pedestrian, you don't know what's coming. With a car, there's sound. And I'm just wondering, how do these do with the pedestrians around? I mean, I see in New York
They do
City,
well.
I find it frustrating, to be honest.
Well, we're not in New York City. We're only in the East Bronx. And what you see in the city is privately owned scooters.
I mean, like at the north end of the Bronx, or
The East
where
Bronx.
in the Bronx are you?
The East Bronx.
Right. So what is that, like what neighborhood is the?
To me, at the top of my head, I don't know exactly in the East Bronx where they are, but they are in the East Bronx. And like they're not to be ridden on the sidewalk. So for us, our interaction with pedestrians would be unless they're in the crosswalk and a person has to deliberately run into them unless they're not to be on the sidewalks. That's one of the main rules, is you're not allowed to ride on sidewalks. And so it's one of the things that.
But they are in, say, a bike lane, right?
Correct.
So, as people, pedestrians perceive the bike lane as a place that they can stand while they're waiting to cross the street. Right. So.
Almost gotten taken out.
Well.
So I just was wondering. Also, are helmets required?
They are not. And that's a speed issue.
And do these operate once it's dark?
Oh yeah, they have running headlights.
They
meet the requirements for the distance of the headlights. Yeah, their headlights are running full time. So they run during the day, and at night there's a tail light. The two brakes, when you hit the brakes, the back tail light, red light, illuminates and flashes. There's two actually front headlights, one inside one another. So they are very bright and very visible.
Great. Okay. Glad to hear.
And there are operating hours too.
There are.
So they don't operate. Yeah.
Hours?
I believe it's 5 to midnight.
Oh, okay.
So after in between those hours, they don't. So after midnight and before 5 a.m., they don't operate at all. So if there was one out in the street that wasn't picked up, it's unable to be ridden. So you don't see it in the app, and you can't reserve it. It basically sits idle.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah, go for it.
Jeremy, just
as many as you want.
One more question.
So is there? So this is a 12-month pilot. I mean, there are lots of questions I could ask, but the one is, will there be monthly report outs or feedback, or will that be publicly disseminated, or will we have? Again, we have authority over the train stations, Southport and Fairfield, and so to the extent things are going well, get you that feedback, or if there are growth opportunities, get you that feedback as well. Is there going to be any opportunity to have a give and take from time to time with Bird? Or
of course, the account manager can have, at the start of the program, can have weekly or biweekly meetings with. I only say Mark because I don't think Mark's going to be the person eventually managing the entire program, but there can be weekly, biweekly, monthly meetings. They can aggregate the data that you'll get. So that data, you have access to it 24/7. So that there's a single login, but that can be shared in the community. So you can log in at any time and see all the data that you would like, or if you want us to aggregate reports, we can absolutely do that for you on a monthly basis. And that's part of that. So that those meetings with that fleet manager at the beginning are kind of to make sure how is everything going, what can we do to improve, what do we see are trouble areas, those kind of things are. That's the give and take we take the entire time the program's in place, is that, you get to provide us with, things that you think need to be improved, or, anything that can be going wrong with the program, or anything good with the program, or requests for scooters in these areas, or don't put them in these areas. Those kind of things are always things that your account manager will be talking with you about.
Great. Jeremy.
And you said 12 months, and even though it's not, so just so everybody knows, it is purely seasonal. Okay. So
I figured no time.
Yeah. We don't change into studded tires or anything like that. So they start in early April and they would come off, depending upon I live on the coast in Massachusetts, so it depends on the weather. So, October, November, something like that. They'll come off the ground, they'll be hibernated, and then come back out in the spring.
Good. We appreciate your time. I know the town has effectively agreed to this for 12 months, so it really just for us comes down to location and the cadence of when we would respectfully like to have a report out, whether it's, every quarter back to us so we can kind of see how things are going. But I think the location is really what we're highly concerned about, given our oversight.
Yeah.
What's the
and
best
I think
way? What's the best way to agree to the location that that would work for us? I don't know. I mean, it sounds like I'm trying to picture this. How crazy busy.
Yeah.
When right now we're still operating probably 50%, but trains do get very busy, when people get off the trains and to and from on both sides effectively, but more so in the evening and that down, on the platform side there, it can be very busy. So where would you think the best location would be? Would it be in one of the parking spots you said that would be, or
so
where would
help me under, so I'm looking at the Fairfield, I'm looking at the map right now. So are you talking about the train station commuter lot, that side?
No,
which side?
The south side, which also has train commuter.
Yeah, they both.
The Carter Henry.
Yeah, Carter Henry.
It has downtown employee. It has timed parking, and then there's some business parking, and then that further down is patron parking for some of the buildings.
Yeah,
and now there's a new apartment building going up.
Space is a premium.
So it'll be tough to find a good location. But
and we don't want to give up
a
revenue spot for us. So
yeah.
I think we need to come up.
No, and we absolutely wouldn't take up a parking location. That's for sure. Definitely not. We would find an area. So I'm just looking at a couple of areas right now. They could be.
Come back to us on that.
And that's the thing with having Nick locally being able to scout a couple of those places out. And it could be 50 yards down. It could be, in the corner of the whatever the restaurant is, there's some parking spots there. Or it could be even half a block down Carter Henry on one of those areas. We definitely wouldn't take up a spot. And we would not want to be obviously taking up a vehicle's parking spot. People would probably raise holy Cain about that. So we would want to be far out of there. And we would pick a spot that you guys would be like fine with. We would not just choose spots arbitrarily. We would want to make sure the location would be okay with your folks, you guys, and so that's definitely where we'd go about it.
Perfect. So only thing we would reflect for us is just to have the ability to have final sign-off on the location. So we do want that privilege to be able to agree, whether it's with Mark or the appropriate people. So can we reflect that in the meeting minutes that we obviously have some concerns, but it's really the town has made this decision and there's no liability for the Parking Authority Board, but we just want to agree on the location and then also agree to, probably a report, maybe a couple months after this goes live, just so we can get an update.
Oh, we can do it before that. We can do it. We definitely would want. I'd want to do that before that. I mean, it's very easy to do. So, That's not a big deal. I'd rather have you see the much data as possible. That's what's important to the health of the program and how it all works. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say, final say, I would more or less say we'd mutually agree to the locations.
Perfect.
Is more important thing to say. And again, I want to be not in those, with all the people and the traffic, things like that. We want to make it so they have to walk off a little further. That's the beauty of being able to reserve it. You can reserve it and wait 30 minutes to go get it. So, you're not running off the train to get to one of the scooters because it's one of the last ones there. You could have reserved it in advance. And whether it's a 20-yard walk or a 50-yard walk, that's still not that big of a deal. But yeah, know this, it's not going to be on the other side of Carter Henry. It's just not.
Okay. Jeremy, thank you for the time. It was a nice overview. Sorry we didn't see you in person, but we'll probably be looking forward to hearing feedback on the mutual agreed upon spot. We wish you the best of luck, and thank you for your time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Rich, sorry, just for the minutes, I will put in then that you are waiting for a mutual agreement for the ability to have final sign-off on location, correct?
Yes, and also the subsequent, report in probably a couple months after, probably no more than 3 months after the program goes live, a report back to, the Parking Authority Board on, just lessons learned and how things are going.
So, yeah, no more than 3 months. I will add that also. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay.
Just as one other point on this, do we want to add, maybe it's your report or just as a board, month to month, talk about how this is going, just make it an agenda item?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're providing reports.
Stats. Like we get stats on the park.
Or even just,
if there's
what we're experiencing, as we commute.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many people are using it to go to or from the train.
Yeah, that's my other concern. That's my only.
That'll be
are we
interesting
cannibalizing our? But I don't think it's
our parking.
The profile. Yeah, that's it. Because it's not 12 months.
Right.
Maybe in the summer, but
Yeah, I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, but I was in San Francisco and I tripped over a bunch of them. I mean, that years ago when they were already out there, but just stop and just drop it right now.
I know. I agree. All right. I've seen them. I was down in D.C. a couple of weeks ago.
They're all over the place.
Fly on those things, and it's like.
The 15 miles an hour is not slow.
Well, that's the thing too.
Well,
it's like, the speed. It's like when you asked about helmets, he was like, well, the speed. I mean, 15 miles an hour standing up on a scooter, you don't need a helmet?
But the great point you made about how quiet they are, because I almost got smoked twice by bicyclists,
Yeah.
And
I'm a huge fan of the idea of micromobility, but I also,
Well,
it'll be interesting.
they're going to try it out, and a lot of other towns are trying it out too, so.
Yeah, well,
see how it goes.
We'll probably be the newspaper first on this, but hopefully for the right reasons.
This is an aside because it doesn't have to do with the parking
That's
authority.
right. It was just a courtesy for them to come and speak to us so that the board would know about this program, because there is some overlap.
Sure.
I think
with the fact that they want to be near a train station, and so Mark Barnhart had said he was meeting with a number of the boards, and unfortunately he was not available tonight, so he has Jeremy come, and I remember meeting Jeremy over a year or so ago when this idea was starting to come up. And they were looking at a lot of different bicycle, motorbikes, but those e-bikes and then e-scooters and so on. So it's been kicking around for a while.
Can't people pedal anymore?
Nice.
Just
Certainly in this area.
Buy a bike.
I was just going to say, since this is what I spend my days on, and this is something may be familiar with to you, is that there's just so much competition for the curb between deliveries and regular bicycles and parking and, garbage collection.
People eating.
And people eating, exactly. That, adding this new mode, I just think, gets my eyes crossed a little. And in many places, public, like in New York City, public transit.
But we don't have those.
In New York City, you have to add buses.
I think they're probably going to put one here. This isn't.
Who comes here?
No, I know, but just, there's a lot in this jurisdiction, you know? I don't know, you know,
you're
like,
right,
you could-
you're right, yeah.
I think the
This
sweet spot for
area?
that's gonna be Old Post Road south.
Yeah, somewhere.
Or, what's that, I always get it, south, I guess, towards the beach. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
Definitely.
gonna be the sweet spot. I mean, 95 seems like a normal place to cut off operation.
Southport will probably have some.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's
What happens
continue
when you go
with the
down?
agenda here. You want to give an update on the
Like steep.
Sure.
parking?
Okay.
Jude, we're back on to the office report here, sorry.
Okay, so for the Parking Authority office report, parking stats, talking about total parkers, month to date, we've had 411 parkers per day on average. This compares to March where we had 498 or 500. February we had 260, 270. January we had less than 200, so it is going up. This month has been a little quieter. There was spring break and things like that, so that might be the reason. Fridays remain low, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays we've had a number of days where it was 500 or 600 parkers. As far as day parking, month to date, we have on average about 110 day parkers per day. And March we had a little bit higher, we had about 131. Again, for the month of April, with the 109 day parkers per day, 98 were at Fairfield and 11 were at Southport, so the majority is at Fairfield. Year to date, we've had, when you average all this in, you're gonna, get a much lower average. You're gonna get about 95 day parkers per day, with 86 or 90% being Fairfield parkers and 10% being Southport. 60% of the people of day parkers pay on the mobile app, 32% pay at the kiosk, and 7% are other.
What is other?
I'm sorry?
What
What is other? Tickets or things of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They get ticketed for nothing.
Oh, right. I don't know if Eileen's bartering here.
No. Okay, so now we're on to the FY23 permits. We've been working with the vendor. The notices go out next week to permit holders regarding renewals. The renewal period will be May 16th to June 30th, and I'll be putting that on the website as well as Facebook. We requested a number of the auto-generated emails that the vendor sent to be reworked, but unfortunately they cannot get all of that done until before the renewal period starts, and I don't want it done in the middle of it because I'm afraid that it could mess things up. So we're going to put that on hold and just use the old auto-generated emails, and then we're going to revisit that with them in mid-July.
I know when that typically goes out, you have a surge of inbound calls sometimes and activity.
Yeah.
Stage that appropriately.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who renew right away, and then there's a lull, and then there's a lot at the last.
Reminder notice.
And then we start sending weekly reminders, and then we get the surge at the end of the month, at the end of the period rather. So, and just to cap off within that, how we did with FY22, we sold 2,007 permits. 87% were Fairfield, 13% Southport. This is down 2% from fiscal year 21 and 8% over fiscal 20. And in FY22, 84% were renewals and 16% were new permits. So we had a lot of people come, that have moved into the area and have been seeking permits, and because we haven't had a wait list, they've been able to get one right away. So we've even had people this month ask for permits. So we cut off the new permits May 1 when we start to do the renewals, and then we'll offer them, we put them on a wait list, and then we'll offer them a permit in July, middle of July, when we're done with the renewal season. It's more of a system thing. You can't have
Right.
new permits and renewals going on at the same time. Things doesn't flow well.
Just out of curiosity, how is Fairfield Metro faring?
They, they're seeing the same thing as us. Their lot is not full either.
That's never been full.
No, they have a larger lot than us by a couple hundred, but I talked to the person who runs that station, and he actually runs a number of stations pretty regularly, and pretty much the same thing as us. We've talked about different things that they were offering way back and when the COVID first started, whether they were going to do monthly permits or quarterly and things like that. But they've gone back to their permits. I think they do 6-month or annual, and their prices, back up, and they're just riding it out. But they're seeing a slow increase, but it's not full.
Who manages that? Is that privately managed, or is it?
So it's run by the state. The state puts out a contract every 5 years for a management company,
Right.
and the company that won the bid the last time was named Owens Realty Services, and they do Fairfield Metro, Bridgeport, I don't know if it's Waterbury. They do about 4.
Okay.
So they, we talk a lot because with Fairfield Metro, most people don't realize that Parking Authority doesn't cover Fairfield because it's Fairfield. Mm-hmm. So we get a lot of calls, so therefore we work with them, and a lot of times with things with DOT that come down, I'll go over to Metro, meet with them and DOT, and if they have like certain signage that they want put up, or they have a new thing called a power tower, where you can charge your cell phones or devices. It takes 4 of them. They're rather tall, but a little concerning and wobbly. And so we met with them, and they said, this is what we're going to be sending out to all the stations. So they brought mine down, so we got to put them out in Fairfield and Southport as soon as we can. So I'm just looking for the right location where I can have it, bolted to the floor, so that it doesn't.
So it would go inside the station?
Yeah, inside the station. Yes, yeah, it's not waterproof or anything like that. And they had some new signage that has to go up. So we work with them a lot. We've made contact with all of the stations. We talk to them twice a year when we do updates. But there are several stations that we've gotten to know the people well, and just share experiences and thoughts and stuff like that. And it's helpful. Yeah, it's helpful. So that's it for my report. Any questions?
That's good. Good meeting. With that, I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:57. Second. Mike seconding it. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Judy, did you catch that?
I did, thanks. Yep, I did. All good.
All right. Have a wonderful evening, and stay safe and healthy, okay?
Stay off East